Hello, welcome. Do you want to take a seat? Yeah, it's okay. How are you today? Okay, for starters, it's always important to break the ice. Today's your first therapy session. You've never believed in therapy. That's a good icebreaker. And you've heard all this mumbo jumbo about what it is that therapists do. And you feel like you're stuck. So you just want to give it a go. What I would say is that you don't put any pressure on yourself. You see as a conversation. We try and make sense of what it is that is happening with you. And at the end of it, we see what it is that we've learned and what it is that we can try and work on. How about if we start like that? I haven't got the standard chairs that you lay on, and I would just talk you through in a way of hypnosis and stuff like that. I haven't got any of that. You're just gonna have this conversation like this. Is that okay? Okay. So tell me about you. Okay. You're in your 40s. Okay. And you're a professional. Okay. Don't really want to share what you do. Just that's completely understandable. You're a parent. Okay. You got kids. But life's just a little bit tricky right now. Understandable. You just feel as though you can't catch a break. Okay. So what about would you say is making you feel like that? Okay. Some illness in your family. Your boss is being okay. Interesting choice of words and interesting description of your boss. Okay. Marriage ain't going too great. Okay. Don't really have a lot of friendship group either. Okay. So when it comes to actually taking a break from one aspect of your life, it feels as though there is no other avenue or channels that you can fence to. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Okay. So what have you used before? You used to enjoy sports, playing or watching? Okay. Playing. So actively participating in sports. Okay. What sports, if you don't mind me asking? You're a football fan. Okay. So you played. What position? You're a striker. Okay. So why striking? Okay. because it allowed you to, one, be focused, and two, be able to achieve an outcome you wanted. Okay, okay. That's an interesting take on that, don't you think? Why did I say that? I said it because whilst the ultimate goal of a striker is to score a goal, they don't do that by themselves. They require the rest of the team to do their job. So a defender would need to defend, a midfielder would need to be creative, and then deliver this beautifully wrapped gift in the form of a pass to the striker to be able to then score the goal. So that's what I mean. That when it comes to the pressure that you then put yourself on as a striker, if you believe that you need to do everything to achieve and deliver this outcome, what happens is when everybody else then does their job and have it handed over to you, you're so overwhelmed and overworked that you kind of stumble. Do you feel that sometimes? Okay, okay, interesting. Do you feel that not having that now means is even more tricky? Why did you give up? Just out of interest. You had an injury. Okay. An injury that reoccurs every time you go anywhere near football. Okay. What are doctors saying about that? They can't find anything wrong. That must be very frustrating. It is. So how do you deal with that? You don't. You feel like you just carry like nothing is wrong. Okay. So now you've lost this very important outlet. Have you found a replacement? You haven't. Would you say that you've tried? Not necessarily. Okay. Why is that? Time. You haven't had the time. Okay. So you haven't had the time to find something else. Okay. All right. So just so I am getting this right, do you feel like there's a lot of pressure on you from different channels? And previously, the way you dealt with your day was to actively engage in playing football. You're not only a fan, but you also play football. And you took a particular position on the football pitch that required you to deliver. And sometimes this was something that you kind of allowed you to put a lot more pressure on yourself, that when it was time to deliver, you almost kind of fumbled, but a lot of the time you did deliver, but now you've lost that. You've lost that because you had an injury and now you just haven't got the time to find a replacement. Okay. Is that about right? Okay. Do you miss it? Would you say? You do. Okay. You miss it a great deal. You feel like you've lost a part of you. That's what you're saying. Okay. You'd give anything to have those times again because it brought joy to your face. Okay. They were happy times. Okay. So what's changed now? You feel like you don't go out anymore. You feel like it's just work and home, work and home. Okay. So if work is very tricky, you go home. And when home is very tricky, then you almost wait as though you need to go to work again and hope that work is not tricky. Okay. But home's tricky because somebody's unwell. Who's that? Okay. The mother-in-law. Okay. So the mother-in-law is unwell and they live with you. Okay. So you've got the children and then you've got the mother-in-law that you've got to deal with. Or support, for lack of better words, actually. Support. Okay. And that is a difficult dynamics. Okay. So that's putting a lot of pressure on your family. But this pressure seems to start from mother-in-law and then trickles down to everybody else. What's going on? Are they finding any sort of resolution to that, would you say? Okay. Okay. So there's a lot of tests being carried out right now. Okay. When do you get to spend time at home? Usually. So you usually leave the house about 8 o'clock in the morning and then you don't return till about 6, 7 o'clock. Okay, so a huge proportion of the day is spent at work. Tell me about your job. So you're a manager and you have 5 people working under you. What they like? A lovely bunch. Okay. You have a good laugh. Okay. They're just times where they don't always meet targets. Okay. Okay. How often would you say that happens? Okay. And because you all get on really, really well, you almost feel as though you shouldn't really be putting a lot of pressure on them because you feel they work hard. Right. But pressure is being put on you from the very top. Okay. You feel like you can never win. Why do you feel that? You want to deliver. You want your team to deliver. So that one, you can appease the guys up there and also reduce the pressure on your team. Have you tried to explain this to your team? You have. But they feel as though it is too much. Okay. I see a pattern here that I just want to kind of pick up with you. And there's a pattern of the level of pressure that you put on yourself. So when you are playing football, that's a high stakes environment and a lot of expectation for you as a striker to deliver. But not only that, you also apply that pressure on yourself. And then when you go home, you are in an environment where there is also there are also high stakes where mother-in-law is unwell. She feels bad. And she feels as though she's a burden. And then that trickles to everybody else because everybody else is feeling as though they need to fix that so she can feel better. But what's happening by the sound of it, it sounds as though because nobody else can fix that because it's not something you've got control over, you guys are not feeling overwhelmed by it all. And this takes me to your job, at your workplace. You're caught in this dilemma of wanting to be the nice boss versus wanting to be the one that delivers. And now you're trying to appease two masters, your actual boss versus this side of you. But when you try and allow the leadership role rule, what then happens is that you find that people are upset rather than being able to see this as a role that you're performing, an expectation. You feel bad about it. And what ultimately happens is that pressure piles up and it doesn't seem to be getting better. So, what's happening by the sounds of it is that you're like a container that is being filled with gas and it's been filled and filled and filled, and there's no exit because what used to happen was football was your exit, and now you've got no exit. Ultimately, you're going to explode. And some people will explode by having outbursts, having what some people determine as tantrums. They would have verbal cuss out to people that they care a great deal about. And not only when these have happened did they eventually realize that they've been taking on too much. It is better not to get to that point because certain aspects in our life play a very specific role. Specific activities such as reading, running, jogging, joining the gym, playing sports of any kind helps us to distress and unwind. And unless we're able to reincorporate that into our lives, we are going to consistently feel overwhelmed by what life throws at us, either from work or from home or from our personal lives. So, how about if we take on that task of identifying another activity that could replace football and see how that goes? And we'll talk about it next week. What do you think? You're going to try it. I'm glad. Maybe we should look at it one step at a time, one thing at a time, and then we go from there. It's been lovely meeting you today. Until next time, look after yourself and stay safe. Bye for now.